with 7 seconds, with 6. He'll drive the baseline, takes it to the near side, spins away from Sensabaugh, and that's it. The buzzer sounds. The ball game's over. Warriors get a win. 114-103, the final. And Golden State will get back to 500 and face a very difficult back-to-back and welcoming the best team in the West, the Oklahoma City Thunder, tomorrow night.
Well, that's about all they can do, because all they could really do tonight was just trying to find a way to scraw this. Can't even put together words right now, having watched what was probably the most brutal victory of the season. Like, I know we talk about how the Warriors have had really bad losses and newest lows. This one was dangerously close to being there. This one was dangerously close to to fitting the bill. This was a 1-point game with about 8 minutes left in the fourth quarter. And yes, the Warriors won. They somehow even covered the 10.5-point spread because they won by 11 points. So congratulations to those degenerates of you out there. But this was by no means a pretty basketball game. And I know that there's a lot that kind of bleeds into this, right? The Warriors are without Steph. They're without Draymond. They're without Kuminga, 3 of their top 4 or 5 players, however you want to slice it. They got a back-to-back against, obviously, a juggernaut tomorrow in Oklahoma City on national television. That it's easy to overlook a Jazz team like this, but let's not forget that the Utah Jazz were down 4 of their top 6 rotation players. They did not have Larry Markkinen. They did not have John Collins. They did not have Johnny Juzang. They did not have Jordan Clarkson in this basketball game. It was the Colin Sexton, Isaiah Collier, Micah Potter, Drew Eubanks, Kyle Filipowski show that almost walked into Chase Center and beat the Warriors. And they had no business being in this basketball game, but the Warriors just kind of let them hang around, and it turned into a rock fight, quite honestly. This was not a fun basketball game to watch, but at the end of the day, it is what people will describe, and I did on Twitter, as a necessary win. Like, you have to win these basketball games, and as ugly as it was, they got the victory, and so it's certainly not anything to write home about. I think this is one of those flush-it games, much in the way that the Warriors last week on Wednesday, they lost a tight game to Sacramento, right, in Sac. And I think something that helped them get over that was the fact that they played they played the next night, right? They came out, they totally beat the Bulls by 1 billion, they wiped them, and they flushed the Sacramento game. This is also a game that if you are hosting the Oklahoma City Thunder, who have 8 losses to their name at game 45 in the season, you have to flush this game. The effort, I think really the first and fourth quarter energy levels, I just thought were all over the place. They came out flat against a Jazz team who, oh, by the way, also played last night, got in extremely early this morning, and came out with more energy to the point that this was, I think, a 17-7 game less than 4 minutes into the ball game in favor of Utah. The Warriors did not have, I think, an appropriate fear of the Utah Jazz, and I know that sounds crazy to say, but the Warriors are not a good enough basketball team, especially down, again, 3 of their top 5 players, that they can overlook anybody. Again, this is a Warriors team that less than a week and a half ago was in a ball game with the Washington Wizards, who have 6 wins in the fourth quarter at home with Steph. This was a 1-point game against the Utah Jazz, and so, I mean, to me, that is a little bit concerning. In one breath, and I have some kind of larger picture takeaways coming up in a bit, but if we're just breaking down this basketball game, like this was a tough one to watch, and I'm curious what people think about it. 888-957-9570. Also, shout out to the YouTube chat powered by First NorCal Credit Union. I see a couple people chiming in already. What's going on as we welcome people in? A couple of takeaways just first from this game. All right, first of all, a brutally ugly, but necessary win. The Warriors are also somehow now 6-3 without Steph. I think there's not exactly a correlation there, but I don't think it's is nothing. The paint. The Warriors are allergic to scoring in the restricted area, and really just inside, it feels like inside the free throw line. Like at the point where the Warriors were within a point, I think it was 199 with 6:14 left in the game. Now that I'm looking through my notes, 2 minutes earlier in the fourth quarter, the Warriors were 13 for 34 in the paint. That's an issue. And again, the Jazz are not some world beaters. I know they have a lot of size. Obviously they got Filipowski, Eubanks. I mean, they have 6'11" and above, but Walker Kessler wasn't playing in this game. Larry Markkinen wasn't playing in this game. The Jazz at full strength are a big team. Like, they're a team that should defend the paint better than they do. But the Warriors, especially in that first quarter, I mean, I swear I'm going to hand out some credit a little bit, but I just got to get this stuff off my chest. Like, in the first quarter, I was sitting in media row talking to someone, and there was a 3 or 4 minute stretch. It felt like from the 7 minutes about the 3 minute mark, where the Warriors had, it must have been 4 or 5 fast break opportunities, and they got 0 points out of them. I mean, I'm just going through them right now. There were 4 actually, blown transition opportunities. Looney had a strip and steal on the right side, goes in, gets stripped on the way up, ball goes out of bounds. That's a missed fast break opportunity. Next possession, they have a 2-on-1 fast break where Gary Payton II delivers it to Wiggins. He loses it on the pass. It goes out of bounds. 2 possessions later, Podziemski has a fast break opportunity and travels on a Euro step that would have been a layup that would have got you fast break points. 30 seconds later, Podziemski gives it up to Schröder, who both of them played very well in this game, by the way, but he back rims a 3 in transition when they have a 3-on-2. It's like at the end of the first quarter, they must have had 6 or 7 fast break chances. And I realize you're not going to score on all of them, but they got 2 fast break points in the entire first quarter of the game. And it's just mind-boggling how bad this team can be sometimes at scoring inside the three-point line. And that's another kind of takeaway that I have. It's like it's obvious why they shoot threes, because they can't make layups and they can't get to the free throw line. And we've known this for some time. Coach Steve Kerr has been telling us this, but it just hit me like a ton of bricks tonight watching again against a Jazz team where, I mean, Pods is going at Colin Sexton, who had 30 points tonight, performed very well for a Jazz team that is, I don't know if he's trying to get out of there, but he played like it tonight. But it's like Micah Porter, Sensabaugh on the floor, and the Warriors just could not get anything in transition. Like, I actually thought they played pretty well defensively after the first 4 minutes. They held the Utah Jazz, and this is the stretch in the game where, if the Warriors have even an average offense, I think there's a really good chance that they run away with this game even earlier than they did. And they went up at halftime, I think, by 10 due to a 5-0 run by Pods. Yeah, they're up by 11, 62-51. But they had a chance from the 8:20 mark until about the 7-minute mark of the second quarter. The Jazz scored 12 points in 13 minutes. And you got to tip your cap. The Warriors played some good defense. The Jazz were also just missing a ton of shots after they start 6 of 8. I think they go 8 for 24 from the floor. And that moment in the game is when the Warriors really have an opportunity to kind of extend, push their lead, put the Jazz away early. And not like you're trying to get anybody any rest in this game. Curry's already resting. Draymond's out. Kuminga's hurt. But that's a game where you can make this much easier on yourself, whereas it felt like in the fourth quarter, they were just trying to play not to lose that game. And that's how they started. They started and finished this basketball game like they were playing not to lose. And to their credit, they didn't. But it was a rough watch tonight. I'm not going to lie to you. Again, 888-957-9570 is the number. I mean, if you want to call in and let me know what you thought about this game, please do. I mean, one thing that I also do have to give credit to, I mentioned again Curry and Draymond didn't play. You do have to credit the other OGs in this game, the other vets that I think tonight deserve credit for being professionals, like Andrew Wiggins, Kevon Looney, Dennis Schröder, who I've been hard on in the past, and Kyle Anderson, who came back after missing 6 games. They deserve credit for playing as hard as they possibly could tonight. And they didn't all have it at points. I mean, Wiggins was aggressive from the start and ended up with 19 points on 17 shots, but it wasn't for a lack of trying. Like I know he only had a couple rebounds, but a number to look for with Wiggins is free throw attempts, and he got to the line 9 times. He was clearly trying to get something to go and couldn't. Inside the 3-point line, he was 2 for 11. Which feels like a lot of Warriors this evening. Schröder was 3 for 7 on twos. Looking up and down here, Quentin Post was 1 for 5 from inside the 3-point line. Brandin Podziemski was also 1 for. He only took one 2-point shot tonight. But that kind of goes to my point. The Warriors got 49 threes up, and you can understand why. Buddy Hield was 0 for 3 inside the 3-point line this evening. So I do want to credit the veteran players because they also got to play tomorrow night. Like, that's one thing, too. It's their job on a night like tonight to go out and win this game for the Warriors or help win the game for the Warriors while also keeping themselves preserved for what is going to be an overwhelmingly daunting task tomorrow when OKC comes to town. Like, Wiggins played 33 minutes tonight. They needed him to play all 33. Schröder, I talked about this during pregame, and this is one reason why I think they also acquired him is for a game like tonight. If you're going to preserve Steph and keep him fresh, just not for the big games, but also ideally for a postseason push, which is up in the air at this point when the Warriors stand at 23-23 and they're on the outside looking into the play-in tournament. But if you're going to keep him fresh down the stretch, you got to have somebody that can play in these games and, in my opinion, allow Steph to be load managed. Like, that is kind of where he's at in his career at age 36 going on 37. Schröder did that tonight. And I know he wasn't perfect, but you got to give credit where credit is due. And I don't think that Schroeder's been a perfect player for the Warriors whatsoever. I don't think he necessarily is a fit for this team, but he fits on nights like tonight, which is you go out there, play however you want to play, slow the game down, run pick and roll, get as many shots up as you want, play that pesty type of defense that you're known to play, and help us win a ball game. And that's what he did. He was 8 for 20, took 13 threes, but he scored 23 points, which led everybody, had 3 steals in this game, and he played a game-high 34 minutes. I don't know how many minutes he's going to play tomorrow against OKC because also someone like Podziemski's beginning to get back and earn some more minutes as kind of the backup guard. Maybe he plays alongside Schröder. I'm not so sure how they stagger that tomorrow. But Schröder played 34 minutes tonight because he had to. And the Warriors needed every single second of him to go get that victory tonight. And let's not forget that Schröder also got injured during this game and had to leave. Now, he came back and he came in, and I thought he played well in the fourth quarter, and they needed him to because, again, it was a 1-point game with 6 minutes left. But that is where I got to tip my cap. And I haven't been the most glowing individual that has spoken on Schröder this season. But tonight, even against the Jazz, that's a game where you have to give credit to someone like Schröder. He's in his 12th year. He doesn't have to give a crap, quite frankly, about this game. But he did because he takes pride in his work, and he's a pro's pro. And I did earn a lot of respect for him tonight, along with Wiggins, along with Looney, who came off the bench, who probably has every right to be, and he never does because that's why he's Kevon Looney. That's why we love him. But Kevon Looney has every reason to sulk being behind both Trace Jackson Davis, who's now quietly being phased out, and Quentin Post even. Quentin Post played 16 minutes in this game, but Looney, if Trace Jackson Davis had been playing well, he's stuck on the bench behind him. And I think that's beginning to change. I think Post is biting into TJD's minutes, but Looney, it's like, well, you only go to me when you need me. Well, tonight they needed him. He was a plus 23. He had 11 rebounds, 5 of them on the offensive glass. Also had a couple blocks. Looney played his ass off tonight. Kyle Anderson is also a guy that could probably be pissed off. Like, if you're looking at the rotation, the way that this went down, and I jotted down this note in the first half, Kyle Anderson came in the second quarter. So that means that Looney played in front of him, TJD played in front of him. From the forward, Santos came in before he did. Obviously, you're looking at Gary Payton II came in before he did. Moses Moody started tonight at the 4. Like, Kyle Anderson's played in 7 different playoffs. Kyle Anderson has been a successful player in college. He has been a successful player with the Spurs, the Grizzlies, the Timberwolves. He was in the Western Conference Finals last year. He's taking a back seat right now, and he hasn't made a single stink about it. He hasn't been unprofessional about it whatsoever. He came in and gave you 11 minutes tonight, had a breakaway dunk, which seemed like the only fast break points the Warriors could get in that first half, and chipped in where he needed to. You know, is he the perfect player for this team? No. But on a night like tonight, again, this is a must-have win. Not a must-win because it's not mathematical, but you got to get this game. You got OKC tomorrow. You got Phoenix coming up on Saturday. You got the Magic on Monday. Your next gimme game is next week against this very Jazz team in Utah. And then it's the trade deadline when you play the Lakers, and you got to make a choice on what the rest of your roster and the rest of your season is going to look like. So you had to win this game to get back to 500, or you're looking at a stretch where you're really fighting from behind, and the Warriors have barely shown themselves to be a team that can keep themselves above water to begin with. So I think that the veterans, to me, are kind of the biggest plus in this game from the pros' perspective. And then I think obviously Podziemski's probably the guy that's beginning to really round into form. And the second unit again was good tonight. Looney was a plus 23. Guy Santos was a plus 25, which was a team high tonight. His energy is always infectious, always looking pretty good. And then Pods, Podziemski is beginning to play like he played his rookie season when, whatever you give it credit for, he led this Warriors team in plus minus. And that's a team with Steph Curry playing on it. So Podziemski, I think, in his first 3 games back after his injury, but even quietly before then, he'd been shooting the basketball a lot better. Like, if you go back to early December and you look at the last 10 or 12 games that he's played, he's shooting close to 48 or 49% from three-point range. And tonight was more of a volume, but he made 3 of his first 5, ended up 4 for 11, got to the line 6 times, had 7 rebounds, 6 assists, was a plus 19. That looked like the Podziemski we saw last year, and that was a Podziemski that started over Klay Thompson down the stretch of that season at times because he was that impactful. And if he can play, I'm not talking about the 32 minutes a night, but if he can give you 20 to 25 of that Podziemski, of playing within himself, of shooting with confidence, but rebounding, moving the ball, taking care of it enough, that's someone that I think could challenge for that 2 spot alongside Steph, because Buddy has not been very good. When he's been a starter, he's shot below 35% from three-point range, below 40% from the field. And Dennis Schröder has not been a player that when he started alongside Steph has played all that well and has helped the Warriors. So it's more by process of elimination, but also Pods has gotten back, I think, the mojo that he lost for whatever reason at the beginning of this season, and he's beginning to look a lot like the player that we expected to pick up the baton from where he left it at the end of a rookie season that found him being first-team All-Rookie in the NBA. So, again, 888-957-9570 is the number. Evan Giddings with you on 95.7 The Game. We got a couple calls I want to get to here. Let's go out to Coach Duran, who's out in Union City. Coach Duran, what's going on? Welcome to the program. How are you?
What's up, man? Hey, it was an outstanding game. Wiggins, Post, Pods, Moody, Schröder, all in double figures, 5 guys. If we could get 3 to 5 guys at least every night to be balanced and get in double figures, that would be incredible moving forward. I think Warriors can get back to doing good things. We just got to keep working hard, keep learning, gaining knowledge, doing the best that we can. And, yeah, it's going to be better for the Warriors. We're not going to ever let go and quit. We're going to keep moving every day.
Thanks, Coach. Yeah, I mean, it was a win. Tonight was a win. I will say that. I wouldn't say it's a good win. This is from the 262. Honestly, I thought this was a very enjoyable game. That closing lineup, and Moody specifically, looked comfortable. I also think you're right. TJD has an uphill battle with the developments of Post and Santos. Yeah, TJD, I don't think that Kyle Filipowski, for example, is that great of a talent. I mean, I think he was the second pick of the second round last year by the Jazz, Duke center. I mean, he's just as good as TJD in different ways. He's a little bit bigger. He's a little bit longer. He's not as athletic. But there's no real discernible difference between a Filipowski, even to some extent a Eubanks, so I don't think is very good, and right now the way that TJD is playing, because Trace Jackson Davis is not able to make a shot outside of the restricted area, the 3-foot area. He's not a great free throw shooter, and unfortunately, I don't think he's really tall enough to be an elite shot blocker. So he helps the Warriors. He keeps them at a certain floor, but I think Post is someone that can expand their offense, clearly gives them a different threat, is a willing shooter, and because Kevon Looney is the wily vet and someone that has always earned Steve Kerr's trust, and understandably so, is a 3-time champ and has played in big games again and again, I just feel like those minutes are going to go more to Post because he also is someone that can play with more people. I know he's not going to play 30 minutes a night, but Post fits with more combinations, in my opinion, than Trace Jackson Davis does. And he's also someone that can fit, for example, I'm going to try if I can to ask Kerr about this tomorrow, if not on Friday, but would like to ask him how he envisions Post, not just with Kuminga. I think he was asked about that yesterday during practice, but how he fits with Draymond. I actually think that the Post pairing with Draymond is far more interesting because Post is not as obviously as good of a defender as, say, TJD or Looney, but he's serviceable. He's not a stiff. He's not Dario Saric, and that was something that I was a little wary of when I first started watching him was, well, would he just be a guy that can stretch the floor and be a shooter but is going to give up as many as he gets on the other end? Saric last year, in order to be an effective player, had to shoot 50% from 3. Post is showing that, number one, he can be a close to 40% three-point shooter, but he also is not going to be a complete negative on the other end. I think he's smart enough to play pick and roll. Is he a shot blocker? No, but he's a bigger body, and he can stay in front of the majority of centers in this league. Now, against the elites, that's not going to be where he's going to have fun. We saw it on Saturday against Anthony Davis. But that's where Draymond can come in, right? I think Draymond is someone that is going to be helped by Post because Draymond's going to have, I think, maybe a little more teaching to do on the defensive side, but he's not going to be as much of a liability offensively when Post is out there also stretching the floor. Draymond, they're going to give him as many threes as possible, but I think it allows you to play an extra non-shooter, which is one of the big hang-ups why Kuminga, for example, has had trouble cracking the starting lineup. It's because if you have him and Wiggins, along with Draymond and Trace Jackson Davis, you don't really have much shooting on the floor outside of Steph whatsoever. Wiggins is a solid shooter. Kuminga is not a great three-point shooter. Draymond, as much as he could shoot 40% all he wants, he's not going to be a threat out there. TJD obviously doesn't shoot threes. So Post, I think, with Draymond, is going to allow Kerr some more flexibility with both the starting and potentially, second unit. And I do wonder if by the end of this season we might be seeing someone like Quentin Post start games, not because he's the center of the future, but just because he can unlock a lot more of where I think the true talent lies for the Warriors, which is on the wings. So that's something I'm definitely paying attention to. All right, 888-957-9570 is the number. Evan Giddings with you on Warriors wrap-up after the Warriors beat the Utah Jazz, necessarily so. 114-103. They moved to 23-23 with the OKC Thunder coming to town tomorrow night. Let's go out to Fremont and talk to Chardal. Chardal, what's going on?
Hey, great win. This was, as a diehard Warriors fan, great win for the Dubs. We needed this win. I mean, after we lost to the Lakers, we needed to beat this Jazz team. The Utah Jazz are hands down one of the worst basketball teams right now. They're tanking, and there's a reason why they're doing that. Their record is 10-35. They've lost 6 in a row. I think that we gave them what we came down and we played our best game of basketball. And Podziemski and Schröder, they led the way, man. They led it. They scored 43 points in total. I think Podziemski and Schröder are such a great duo. They work so well together. They feed off the ball off of each other, and that's such a great thing on this Warriors team. This Warriors team is really good. They're probably one of the they're a really great team. So many great players. I know Steph Curry didn't play today with that knee injury, which is very upsetting because I love Steph Curry, and I hopefully he comes back against OKC tomorrow. But I love calling into the show, man. I love that you get a lot of people calling into the show, sharing their insights on the Warriors. That's what I like about calling into on this radio, calling on the radio.
Yeah.
And I hope you have a great night, and I'll definitely call in next time.
Thanks, Shardall. Appreciate it. Yeah, if you want to get in the conversation, we welcome it. And look, I'm open to it. We view the game differently. I see Kev on YouTube. Thought the game was enjoyable tonight. I definitely thought parts of it were enjoyable. Again, I think the fact that the veterans played as hard as they did, to me, that is something they deserve credit for. I also think someone like Podziemski beginning to find his rookie confidence is something that I like. Watching those kinds of things happen in real time, I do enjoy it. And maybe I just got caught up in the beginning of this game where it looked like the Warriors were sleepwalking a bit. But I also think, too, I don't know if this is a stretch for people out there, but I think what we saw tonight is what the Warriors may very well look like in the post-Curry era. If there's going to be some lean years for the Warriors, there might be games, whether it's due to injury or due to lack of roster construction or lack of productivity. There was a point in the game where it was Podziemski, Hield, Post, Payton, and Santos in the second half. And I like all those players. I think they can all play. Podziemski's, first-round pick, sophomore player trying to find his stride and figure out who he is in this league. Buddy Hield is kind of a journeyman gunner. Quentin Post is a rookie. Looks like he's got some skills, but still has a long way to go. Gary Payton II, former player that's bounced around teams and has now found a home, undrafted. Guy Santos, another former second-round pick, the Warriors have kind of groomed and developed. That's going to be a lot of the roster in a couple of years. Or even at times when Curry is hurt or being load managed and Draymond is hurt or being load managed, because that's something they're going to have to account for. I think that's why around the trade deadline, people are looking around and wondering what kind of help the Warriors can go get. It's because they're pretty top heavy as far as their stars, but then I would say Curry really is the only one. And then from 2 to 13, some nights like tonight, Schröder, he was the leading scorer. Very easily could have been Wiggins. Podziemski was right behind him. I thought Santos played well off the bench. Moody had some good moments. But it was looking pretty bleak there for a second. Again, this was a 1-point game with 6 minutes left, and you could feel the crowd tonight at Chase Center. You could feel them feeling it slipping away. It was when it was 99-97. Warriors had a 2-point lead. It was before they went on a final run to kind of push the lead away from Utah and grab the game. The crowd started to clap, and it was almost like they kind of gave up. They were starting to get into it. You heard the energy raise a little bit in the arena. The Warriors got to stop, and then they missed a shot, and then the crowd kind of went dead. But that's the kind of energy that I guess throughout this game was really tough to watch. And if you enjoyed the game, I'm not trying to take away from you, but the final attempted kill shot that the Warriors tried to get, to me, kind of symbolized what this game was, which was the Warriors, clearly a better team, the Jazz clearly having no intention of winning this game, or trying to win the game, I should say. Maybe Colin Sexton was, but they, as a team, are not trying to win. They got 10 wins this season. They've lost 7 in a row now. They were not trying to win the game. The Warriors were. But the Warriors, just, for whatever reason, could not put them away. With, I think it was like a minute 30 or 2 minutes left. They're up by 8 points. And they're taking 3 after 3 after 3. They must have missed 4 threes. And I don't even think there was one particular person who took all of them. Schröder might have taken 2, but like Wiggins took 1, Pods took 1, Schröder for sure took 1, and I forget who took the 4th. But all of those were a kill shot 3 to end the game, and nobody could hit it. And the Jazz, of course, got the rebound, went down and did nothing. But it was like that's why the game to me was a bit of a struggle and a slugfest, if you will, because it was like the Warriors were trying so hard to put this game away, but for whatever reason, they just couldn't. So if you define that as resilience, I'll hear it. But to me, it's kind of, it's like those are the games they're going to have to get, but those are also games they're going to have to play because Curry's not going to be able to stay healthy for 100% of the games the rest of this season. The fact they're now 6-3 without him is a good sign, but if Draymond continues to stay banged up, like he's got the back issue, he's got the calf strain, is he going to miss more games? Kuminga, I would like to think, is going to stay healthy when he returns, but he's not going to be back for some time. Like there are going to be some more of these kind of ugly but necessary victories that they're going to have to get. All right, 888-957-9570 is the number. Do you think Draymond's vibes take the fun out of the game for all the young players? I don't know. I don't. But actually, one thing, I'm glad you brought that up, and that's from YouTube. I'm glad you brought that up because one thing that I didn't get a chance to talk to Kerr about post-game, but potentially is a topic of conversation tomorrow, is how fast the Warriors play. And I actually think that Draymond in his prime, and even as early as a couple of years ago, that was someone that could take the ball off the board and push. Like he was someone that could get them extra possessions or, force the defense back, at least put the ball in a position to pressure opposing teams. And he doesn't really do that anymore. So I don't know if he takes the vibe or the fun out of the game for the young players. But I think when he's not on the court, they're allowed to play faster. Like that's one thing that I struggle with Schröder. Tonight he was really good. But overall, the Warriors don't play fast when Schröder's on the floor because he likes to bring the ball up and get into his actions, and he's kind of a ball hog, and he'll take the shots that he wants, and he takes good ones. He knows how to play. He's a pro. But to me, it's like, when Podziemski's in, when Moody's in, when Santos is in, when GP2 is in for some stretches, but it's like those guys will push the break. Podziemski specifically, Moody, and then who is the other guy that I mentioned? Santos especially. When those guys are in, like they push. And the Warriors, as I just told you, like midway through the fourth quarter, they were 13 for 34 inside the three-point line. That means you're not making a lot of layups. You're not making a lot of floaters. There's not a lot of shots with touch that are going in. So how do you overcome that? You can try and get to the defense before they have a chance to set. And while the Jazz are not a good defense, the Warriors are quite frankly not a good offense. And so Kerr talked about the necessity of turning defense into offense by pushing the tempo. And so to your point, I don't think that Draymond takes the fun out of it, but I don't think he allows them to play as fast as he once did because he's 34 years old and he's dealing with calf and back issues. So, I don't think he's taking fun out of it, but they definitely play a bit more up-tempo when he is out of the game. All right, from the 510, the Comcast business, from the text line, Schröder decided to show up tonight, huh? Well, yeah, the Jazz are not a good team. But again, they needed him to show up tonight. Like, that's one thing that I know we're kind of at this point in the season, but if Schröder's not on the team, if Schröder doesn't play the way he did tonight, they might lose. They might lose to the Jazz if Schröder's not in the game, or if he had gone out after he got hurt. So I don't tonight. I'm not going to kill him. I mean, you can say all you want about it being an easy opponent, and he plays well against bad teams, and that's why the numbers look the way they did in Brooklyn. And there's probably some truth to it. But on a night like tonight, he played the most minutes of anybody. He came out of the locker room after he easily could have just packed it in, and he scored 23 points, which they absolutely needed. All right, so on the other side, we're going to take a quick break here, listen to Steve Kerr, and also get you our Chilton Auto Body rebounder of the game on the other side. Got a couple of thoughts also on the deadline, where the Warriors can go, and kind of set you up for, I think, the conversation tomorrow when they get set to play the OKC Thunder, and you get to see, again, kind of what talent really looks like and where the Warriors measure up when they got Curry back. So 888-957-9570 is the number. I see you all on YouTube. If you got any calls, please get them in. Happy to take your questions and get you into the conversation. We'll be back after this on 95.7 The Game. This is Warriors Wrap Up.
good for three.
I'm sorry. Are layups allowed in this game?
Apparently, there's an invisible force field right around the rim.
Do you get fined for a layup?
I don't know.
Now back to Warriors Wrap Up on 95.7 The Game.
Well, Warriors wrap up a necessary win against the Jazz, 114-103. Evan Giddings with you live from Chase Center. Here after the victory, Warriors moved to 500, 23-23, with the Oklahoma City Thunder looming tomorrow. And, of course, the Suns on Friday, Magic a couple days after that. The Warriors simply had to get this victory. And it was not a pretty one in my estimation. Again, it was a 1-point game with 6 minutes and 14 seconds left. The Warriors had to kind of fend off the Jazz, and they needed their vets to do it. They needed a nice night from Podziemski to do it. And they needed contributions from just about everyone. You know, I think that you can take this one of two ways. You can take it as a victory that kind of, you know, they had to fight to get, and it showed some grit. You can also take it as they barely beat a Jazz team that was missing 4 of its top 6 players and was on the second night of a back-to-back. And that almost beats you. You know, if the Warriors don't get some timely possessions, some timely plays down the stretch, if Dennis Schröder, for example, gets hurt in the second half of this game and does not return, this game might look a lot different because it was very much in the balance with not a lot of time left. And curious to hear your takeaways from the game. Do you think that the Warriors, you know, I guess, you know, at this point were impressive tonight? Who you thought stood out in this game? I think to me it was kind of the dirty workers. You know, I think that's, to me, what this game was about. It was about the players that did the dirty work. Wiggins did dirty work this evening, got to the line 9 times. Dennis Schröder did dirty work by just remaining in the game. And then really the entire second unit, I think, was probably the most promising part. Kevon Looney coming off the bench, whereas TJD was ineffective to start this game, had 11 rebounds off the bench. And by the way, he is our crashing the boards rebounder of the game. Brought to you by Chilton Auto Body, the Bay Area leader in collision repair. 5 offensive rebounds tonight for Kevon Looney. Has been one of the better rebounders, especially in the offensive glass during his day and over the past couple of years. But 11 rebounds in 24 minutes, plus 23, along with a couple blocks. Guy Santos is a player that just continues, I think, to push the envelope, honestly. Like I think that Steve Kerr is going to have a choice when Kuminga and Green are eventually back as to how much he wants to play and should play Guy Santos. He makes winning plays. He had 4 offensive rebounds tonight, had the dagger dunk, according to the 262 on our text line. And overall, even when he's not making threes, he still helps. He only took 3 shots tonight. It was a plus 25 in 23 minutes. I know plus minus lies a little bit, but not that much. Guy Santos was a big part of why the Warriors were able to build originally a lead. And when he went out, there was a reason perhaps why they kind of lost it. He connects a lot of different things for them. And then finally, Brandin Podziemski, who I thought tonight is someone that kind of, like, Podziemski to me tonight made his case and has made his case over the last 3 games since he's returned from that abdomen injury to be back in the starting lineup. And it's as much a reflection about the 2 guard and really who hasn't been able to play well alongside Curry this season for a consistent amount of time. And Podziemski looking a lot like he did his rookie season, where he was the leader in plus minus of this basketball team. He was a 38% three-point shooter. Going back again, even before the injury, he's been shooting close to 50% since, I believe it's December 8th, but the early part of December, he's found his shot. He's a willing rebounder. He'll move the ball. And while defensively I don't think he's perfect, he's a smart player. And the Warriors, I think, are in need of players that push the pace, of players that play with a bit of headiness, and players that are unafraid. I think Podziemski walks the line of unafraid and brash, and is a bit bold, too much so at sometimes. But in the last 3 games, I think you've seen a player that has sort of calmed down, like the injury has settled him in a way. And I think it's been really good for him to the point where I would absolutely consider starting him alongside Steph Curry. Because Buddy Hield has not given you much, though he's been a plus with Steph. He's not shot it very well whatsoever. And The other two, Dennis Schröder, I think is better served coming off the bench and running that second unit, especially on a night like tomorrow where he's coming off 34 minutes and might be a bit banged up. So would love to hear from you. Again, at 888-957-9570. While we get those phone calls and a couple of texts that file in, please hit the phone lines. Let's listen to Steve Kerr if we can. Cam, could we please dial up head coach Kerr? Here's what he had to say after the Warriors' victory against the Jazz.
Kind of help Brandin reset his season a little bit.
Yeah, Brandin looks really strong and sharp and determined. I thought he was fantastic tonight, and it's exciting to see. I mean, this is what he expected right from the start this season, and obviously the things started a little slowly for him, but he's really looking like himself now, and I think that time off did help.
He tends to bring a certain energy every time he's out there, and also for being the youngest guy on the team, he tends to act like he's a vet. Is that something that just part of who he is and something you guys need?
Yeah, I think his swagger is part of what makes him who he is, and I think what we need is what you saw tonight: the energy, the passing, the connection, long rebounds, loose balls. I thought he and Guy really came in and changed the game after that slow start that we had, and both those guys really provide that energy and that connection that we need.
There was a lot of talk earlier in the season when Brandin was struggling about him putting too much pressure on himself to make every shot. Could the time off have helped with that just mentally?
Yeah, I think so. He just, I haven't talked to him about it, but I do think that since he's been back, he just looks more sure of himself for whatever reason.
How big was Schröder tonight, and him taking that hard fall and then coming right back? What was that like?
Dennis was great. I was really nervous. I saw him holding his ankle. I thought maybe he had rolled it. And, one of the things I love about him is that he's an Iron Man. He's there for you every single night. And, we needed his scoring. We needed his leadership. I loved the fact that it was catch and shoot tonight, no hesitation. He got 13 threes up. I love that. That's our game is ball movement, and if you're open, let it fly. And I thought Dennis was great tonight.
So Steve Kerr talking after the victory. Again, the two big kind of players asked about there, Schröder and Podziemski, two leading scorers in this game. Schröder had 23 and Pods had 20. Here again, and I mentioned it earlier in postgame here on Warriors wrap-up, you can see why they shoot so many threes. And I think Kerr is, he's obviously not going to talk about the deficiency of his team all the time, especially after a win. But, I mean, gosh, like the Warriors outside of the restricted area and in just the paint tonight were 4 for 20. They were not very good outside of the restricted area. And in general, they haven't been very good this season inside of the three-point line, whether it's getting to the free throw line or making layups. And so the fact that they've shot 49 threes, you just look at their totals from the last few games, and it's apparent what they're trying to do. Like, Kerr talked about it a little bit, right? How, at the beginning of the season this summer, they want to get up, quote, 50 threes a game. And I think at the beginning of the season, they were doing that with relative ease, right? I'm just looking at the box scores right now. Their first 4 games, they didn't take fewer than 43 threes. The last 5 games of now, currently, Washington, Boston, Sacramento, Chicago, Lakers, they have taken an average of 49 threes per game. That barely has come to actually, that's right on mark. So for the last 6 games now, the Warriors have taken 49 threes per game. And it is very apparent as to why they do. To me, it's an admission that they don't generate easy looks. It's an admission of a flaw, a simple one, but a big one. They can't score in the paint. They can't. Tonight, they couldn't do it again. Again, midway through the fourth quarter, they were 13 for 34 in the paint. That includes dunks, alley-oops, layups, easy baskets. They don't get anything And again, this was not against a Jazz team that had their 2 7-footers healthy tonight in Kessler and Markkanen. It was against Drew Eubanks and Kyle Filipowski. That's where the Warriors' problems offensively, to me, persist. It's all in the paint. And so I get why they jack up so many threes. I get why they don't take a lot of mid-range shots, because in order to generate enough offense, they have to get enough threes up. They made 17 threes tonight, but they shot less than 35% from three-point range. And that's when you hear Kurt talking about he loved that Schröder was catch and shoot, that he took 13 threes, that Pods, who, by the way, was a player that discussed this summer taking 7 to 8 threes per game, took 11 tonight. That's something that I think Kerr is actually encouraging of, because it's the only way that the Warriors, I believe, are going to figure out how to solve their offensive problems. They're not going to solve them by getting better at layups or getting better at getting to the free throw line. It's just simply going to be a math game. It's going to be about moving the ball, trying to generate open threes, and taking as many and as often as possible. And I think we've seen the blueprint the last now 6 games. From the Philadelphia game on, from the Washington game on. That's what they have to do in order to be an adequate offense. And it's not going to be pretty on some nights. They're not going to make threes against a really good defensive team tomorrow like Oklahoma City. They may not make a lot of threes. You might see a 10 for 49. You might see an 8 for 42. And the Warriors might get blown out as a result of that. But that's the way that they're going to have to try and, I think, kind of endure this portion of the season until they figure out how to kind of integrate Kuminga, maybe Draymond, and maybe add someone at the deadline who can add a different dynamic to their offense. That's, I think, kind of a big question that I have for tomorrow. And if you join us for Stein and Guru from 10 to 2, we're going to bring it up, like how the Warriors try and, if it's a player that can change something about their offense, because defensively, they're a little bit they're above league average. They're not elite like they were when they won the championship in 22, but they're above league average. Like they're not a bad defense. I believe they're top 10. But offensively, that's why they've gone to basically jacking up threes now. It's because I think Kerr is resigned to the fact that this is just not going to be a good offense unless they're making threes. And that to me is kind of a tough sign. Or it's a tell. And a lot of teams, I think, are taking note of that because, again, it also doesn't necessarily equate to victories. Like the Warriors have taken 49 threes per game now over their last 6. They're 3-3. They beat Washington. They beat Chicago. They beat the Jazz. And the one thing that it does help is that the Warriors, if they get enough threes up, it feels like they can beat the bad teams. They can beat the teams they're supposed to beat. But can they beat the Bostons? Well, no, they lost by 40. Can they beat the Sacramentos? That one really hurt because you made 46% of them. You made 22 threes, and you still lost that game. You also got 46 up against the Lakers, didn't shoot it particularly well. They kind of got handled in that game. Are they going to get enough threes up? Are they going to make enough threes against a team like Oklahoma City? I'm not so sure. When they shoot it well from 3, they got a chance. And when they don't, they absolutely do not. So it's something to kind of keep an eye on. And a part of the mathematical equation, I think the Warriors are trying to, figure out and kind of use to their advantage because of the lack of free throws and the lack of points in the paint. All right. Any last texts we got to clean up here before we got to get out of here? From the 415, if the Jazz make their free throws, we would have lost for sure. Yeah, I'm not going to push back on that. I'll say it had been a different game. Someone asked me at the beginning of this game, excuse me, someone asked me at the beginning of this game, what are the chances that the Warriors lose tonight? And I said above 0. Like, they could lose this game, just like they could have lost the Wizards game. They didn't. But the fact that it was, I think we set the mark, some of the media members and I, was like 15 or 20%. The fact that it was even that high, that's a sign that the Warriors got a lot of work to do. But, they got to win without Curry tonight, a necessary victory, a meaningful one from that sense because he moved back to 500. And I also think that, the Warriors are, I don't know if they're a move away. To me, the Butler rumors today were a bit overblown. I don't think that they're going to make a move for him. To me, the most likely candidate, I guess, would be Vucevic, just because he doesn't cost much. But that also doesn't move the needle for me much, especially if Quentin Post is someone that can kind of help you. I think that the Warriors are stuck here right before the deadline, and I'm not sure there's a player out there, unless there's one that we haven't thought about. Like, even a player, if you go back through the Warriors connections, and it could be someone out there they haven't been connected to, but let's say the Warriors doubled back to someone like Paul George, who they were interested in this summer, and I think the Philadelphia 76ers would want to get off of. I don't really see how that moves the needle for you. And just forget the contract, like it's toxic. Atco Pest Control on YouTube is saying Cam Johnson or Zach LaVine. Cam Johnson is going to cost you multiple first-round picks, according to what the Brooklyn Nets want. That's not a player that I personally would be willing to give up enough for. Or would be willing to give up for. Zach LaVine is a player that I admit would help you offensively, but to me, he's kind of a big numbers on a bad team. He's an empty calories scorer to me. I'm not sure how he impacts winning, and I also think that he's going to cost you Wiggins. He's going to cost you probably some draft capital. And I'm not willing to do that for LaVine, because I do like Wiggins. I think Wiggins has redeemed himself in a lot of people's eyes this season, mine included. And while he hasn't been perfect this year, an argument to be made that he's been their most consistent player. So I don't really think that there's a guy out there. Maybe there is. Maybe he comes around in the next week and a half until February 6th. The Warriors got 4 games until then. They'll play OKC, obviously, tomorrow night. They they get the Phoenix Suns on Friday. Pardon me. They get the Orlando Magic on Monday, and then they get the Jazz again before the deadline. And it's like you just got to try and survive this stretch, and that's sort of where we're at. And if a player gets revealed, I'm certainly open to the conversation. I do think the Warriors could use a trade. I'm just not really sure who's out there that's worth giving up something to go get. That's kind of where I'm at. And I think that's the note I kind of want to leave it on, because, again, we'll talk tomorrow from 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. with Bonte and Shasky, from 10 to 2 with Steiny and Guru. I'll talk to you then as well. To everybody in the YouTube chat, shout out to you. And then from 2 to 6 with Willard and Dibs. Grandy is in for Dibs. I'll talk to you tomorrow. Right here, same time, same place, 6 o'clock Warriors Live before the Warriors take on the Thunder, and then after the game, obviously, on Warriors Wrap-Up. Appreciate everybody that has tuned in to this edition of Warriors Wrap-Up. Big thank you to our callers, big thank you to our texters, big thank you to Cameron Williams, as always, our Warriors Network coordinator, back in the studios, holding it down. Big thank you to Carter Chickering, Chris O'Connell, Stephen Risotto, whichever one of you is back there cutting tonight, thank you very much. My name is Evan Giddings, saying so long from Chase Center, where the Warriors once again beat the Utah Jazz 114-103. We'll talk to you tomorrow on your home for Golden State Warriors basketball, 95.7 The Game. Take it easy, everyone.